This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, thank you very much, Norval. Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for attending this webinar that's called Quality Manager 4.0, the $6 million man. Let's have a quick look at the content, just a very short overview. I'll start with a little introduction and actually an explanation of the title. Then we'll have a look at what are the sort of things that we will be faced with as quality managers in the future, and will that really be a mountain to climb? I'll try to set you a little bit at ease, giving you what I think is a more realistic view of what sort of changes that will come to us and how we need to react to that. And we'll end with a very short overview of past, present, and future. Okay, as said, I will start with an introduction. And some of you may remember the TV series, The $6 Million Man. Now I'll give a little video here, but unfortunately, because of some technical problems, you are not able to hear the sound. So I'll sort of do the voice for you. $6 Million Man was a very successful series that ran from 73 to 78. And it's about an astronaut crashing, barely dead, but then he's being sort of semi-rebuilt. He's been turned into a bionic man, so they're adding all sorts of amazing technology to his body and his mind. He's getting laser sight eyes, he's getting bionic elements in, as you can see here, in his legs and in his arms. And the idea is to turn him into some sort of Superman through technology. The $6 million relates to the cost needed to build him like that. And in 1973, $6 million was an awful lot of money, apparently, because they could all do all that with it. But what is interesting is that in the trailer of the $6 million man, there were two specific sentences, and it were these sentences that made me write this presentation that I brought this spring at the ASQ World Conference in Seattle. The first sentence that came in there was, at some point in time, gentlemen, we have the technology. Now again, this is 73, 78. Some of the technology shown in that series is not even available today, although it was thought of in 73, which is 45 years ago. So technology and technological changes are by no means a new thing. But the second thing that was said is, we will make him better. We will make him better, faster, stronger. And this sort of looks like the Olympic ideal, Citius, Altius, Fortius. And the question raises, will that be the sort of expectations that will come towards quality managers in the future? And the reason why it inspired me for the presentation is because every now and then, this is the idea I get when I read articles, when I listen to speeches on quality manager for the future, and that is that it looks as if we need to become some sort of super athletes. Because of course, you will need top-level quality knowledge, which is pretty normal. If you're in a field of quality, you need to be good at what you're doing. But you then notice that there are changes coming, like big data, Internet of Things, connectivity, and you're supposed to know everything about that as well. Coming with that is artificial intelligence and intelligent automation, again, another new brand of knowledge that is coming up. But it's not just this technical side that is added. There's also a side, a totally new side, a different side where we will need quality to play a part. For instance, quality culture is known as a very critical thing today. People say you will need more and more consulting skills. You will be confronted with innovations. And as if this wasn't enough, you will also see that there will be more and more talk about holistic quality, which means to your skills you will need to add environment, safety, social issues. Basically, it means you will be confronted with digitization knowledge that you need, and you will be confronted with expansion, different areas where you need to apply your quality knowledge. Now, this may look like, as I wrote in the introduction, mountain to climb. And that struck me specifically about a year ago when I was at the European conference in Bled in Slovenia. And my good friend Hans-Jürgen August from Austria gave a presentation, and he ended with this slide, which had, some of the knowledge and competencies that would be required if you would want to be successful as a quality manager. Now, that's an unbelievable amount of things that you are supposed to know. And I asked Hans-Jürgen if he had ever met anybody that mastered this, and he had to admit he hadn't. And I think that you sometimes feel a lot of fear within the quality community, wondering if we will be able to master all of that. Now, one of the things I will point out is that no, we won't be able to master all that, but we don't need it either. But the aspect of fear came to me at another conference, and this was last year, also in November, I think, in Berlin, which was the first ever ASQ conference in Europe. And the conference ended with a sort of a panel discussion with Greg Watson, probably known by many of you, Paulo Sampaio from Portugal, also a very distinguished quality professional, and myself as a third panel member. Now, during the discussion, one of the people actually raised the issue of fear. She basically said, I see in my company there are a couple of new guys, and they are really whiz kids with data, with computers, and they do all these amazing things. And I'm starting to wonder, what am I doing here? What role will I have to play in the future? Because I don't see myself doing all the things that these digital kids are all doing. Now, I don't think fear is needed. And in fact, I think that all these new things are things that we can use and that will be very, very positive for quality, or rather, that can be very positive for quality. In other words, we are getting many new opportunities. And some of them are the following. First of all, one of our very critical issues is the voice of the customer. In fact, we will have the ability to know the voice of the customer better, faster, and more accurate than ever before. That's an amazing advantage. We will be able to see product and process behavior in real time. This means we will see what goes on. We can see what goes on with our product at customer location. And at the same time, we can see what goes on in our processes in real time. So we'll reach process control of exceptional levels, better than ever before. We will be able to proactively avoid customer complaints. And don't forget, this is something that I think all of us struggle with. It is our fundamental thing that we need to be preventive. We've been saying this for years and years and years and years. We need to be preventive, and we need to avoid problems. All these new things will allow us to do this better. Oops, sorry. And it will even allow us to adapt the product to the customer experience. Now, I want to add one thing to all of this digital talk, and I think it is important and sometimes underestimated. We will need changes to grasp the opportunities, and I'll quickly go through this. I'll quickly go through this. We'll need changes to grasp the opportunities, and all of these will come back in the rest of the presentation. From how to what, from operations to company-wide, from corrections to proactivity, as already indicated, from me to us, from us to them, and from hard to the much harder soft. So don't underestimate it. There's a lot of things that we will need to do, but the point I wanted to come to here is that the real world is and will be analog. And this is specifically important for quality because digital, in a lot of cases, is an interface. An interface between companies and customers, an interface between process and operator if it's more technical and locally. But the point is the following. Suppose you have this wonderful food app that you can order your own very special pizza. Now, if there is not somebody somewhere cutting tomatoes and slicing the salami, and if there's not even someone somewhere growing tomatoes and growing pigs, no matter how brilliant your digital app is, you will starve to death. So the middleman has become digital, and the digitization offers opportunities, but always remember that the experience of a customer will be analog. It will be the taste and the quality of the pizza that he eventually eats. So amongst all this digitization, our analog quality will always be important. Now, let's have a look at some of these changes and let's see how the changes we need to do are effective there. And the very first part is, of course, one of the things that I think is talked about the most: big data, connectivity, Internet of Things, and the consequence of all of that on what we will do and on what that will mean for quality. Now, one thing to make clear: you will never be a better data analyst than the data analysts. When the lady in Berlin said, "I wonder, I will never be able to do what these whiskets can do, so what will be my part?" Your part will not be replacing the whiskets. Your part will be to look at the opportunities of big data to enhance the analog experience of your customers. Don't try to become a data analyst. Look at what you can do with the new possibilities offered. And in fact, one of the first changes I said was from how to what. One of the things a quality manager will need to do more is to be more of a strategic person than an actually operational person. We'll need to look at the what rather than the how. And that will be fundamental. It actually means we'll need to manage a little bit more. We'll need to manage the voice of the customer. We'll need to manage the voice of the process. What is important for us is that we understand what data needs to be gathered. Because in fact, there is no limit to the amount of data that can be captured. There is absolutely no limit. The risk is very big that we will drown in data. Now, what is important for us, if we're talking about quality, it's about how do we capture the expectations of customers? What data do we need to understand the requirements, the satisfaction, the experience? What data do we need? And what are the quality requirements of that data? How can we make sure that the data that we get is of sufficient quality to draw the right conclusions out of that? And this is similar for the voice of the customer or the behavior of product at customer site. What sort of signals do we want? We have Internet of Things, but what data do we need to gather? What is the required quality of the data? What information do we need to get? And how can we have the best view of what our product is doing for the customer? And it's exactly the same for process behavior. We can have a zillion data coming from our processes, but again, what is the critical data? What sensors do we need to gather the type of data we need? How accurate does it have to be? What information do we get? How can we use this to steer maintenance, for instance, in a direct way? That sort of questions are the quality questions. It also means that we will be able to go from correction to proactivity. It's actually the biggest dilemma for quality. We all know this. You know, we need to stop firefighting and work on prevention, but we never get the time to do that. And maybe now, with these new evolutions, we have a chance to do that. So relating to customers, we need to solve potential customer issues before they appear. And we are able to give the customer new features before he asks for them. As an example, some of you may know the Philips Hue lighting system. And the Philips Hue system has the possibility to, the Philips Hue lighting system has the possibility to check what sort of functions are used by the customer. If certain functions are never used, they can replace them by others purely through software. Don't forget, Internet of Things can work two ways without anybody interfering, improving the customer experience really on the go. Same is true for process control, and that's even more clear. You can solve potential machine issues before they appear. You should go to a preventative control, preventative maintenance completely, or go completely to condition-based maintenance. Now, basically, we will need to go through a general shift. And the general shift is very much from doing things right to doing the right things. It's very much from operations to company-wide. Now, many companies have what they call a total quality department, or they will call their quality total quality. However, in practice, most of it is still very much focused on operations. We're still having, I think, 80% of our efforts into operations, rather than being present in the more preventive areas like design and sales. This is the part where I talked about from me to us. You know, we have to spread our quality knowledge much more throughout the organization. And typical areas that we are not very familiar with is engineering, marketing, and sales. And this is I think, a two-way communications element that needs to be worked on. As on the one hand, it's up to us to distribute more of our quality knowledge towards these areas and not limit them to operations. And at the same time, there's another requirement from us, and it is to expand our knowledge more of these areas. As quality managers, to spend more time in engineering, to spend more time in marketing, to spend more time with salespeople, because these are areas that we tend to neglect. I mean, I know this is a general statement and some of you might be very, very much involved with that. But as a general rule, it are the elements, the parts of the organization where we can still do a lot more, where we can still work a lot harder on it. Now, if I put all of this together on digitization, because there are still a couple of other elements as well that are changing, but if I conclude on digitization generally, I think we have to be careful when we talk about big data, and when we leave all of this to IT people, their focus will be on gathering as much big data as possible. We will be looking at the biggest big data ever. That's not going to make us successful. The company with the smartest big data will already have a better chance. And the company with the highest quality big data will have the best chance. So leaving digitization to IT is not a good idea. Of course, we need them. They are the people with the how knowledge, the very, very in-depth how knowledge that we will never be able to grasp. But we are the people with the what knowledge, and that is how the company needs to be steered on this area. Now, another issue, which is, of course, related to digitization, but slightly different, is artificial intelligence and intelligent automation. Now, due to time constraints, I will not be saying too much about this in this presentation. I will be speaking in a couple of weeks at the ASQ Quality Summit 4.0 in Dallas. So maybe, I hope, maybe I can see some of you there. But I'll give you just a few ideas of my view on this topic. Now, again, there you will see that artificial intelligence will have an impact, both on process control to process design. You will see things change to machine-driven quality. In fact, fundamentally, I think that quality control will very much be replaced by technology. I'll come back to that at the conclusion. You will see that artificial intelligence will also be used in changing from operations to design and development. And when I say Pareto of impact, don't forget that 80% of everything is determined by the design and by the design of a product. So we really need to put more emphasis on that. And you will see artificial intelligence systems entering that as well, even onto the detailed design, where we will see design with the customer and automated systems designing. Now, generally, I think, again, we will not be the specialists on artificial intelligence, on how to do that. But we need to know what the possibilities are. So you need to follow up on that. Actually, the October issue of Quality Progress was a very good one in talking about some of these new things, including an article on artificial intelligence. Evaluate what is possible for your organization, and also something to be careful about. Not everything that is possible is necessary or valuable. There was a really interesting interview just a couple of weeks ago in a Belgian newspaper with Geert Bruineel, and Geert is the operations manager for Volvo operations, I think worldwide today. And he said that in some cases it is much easier and cheaper, so more economically, to retrain people than it is to reprogram machines. So be careful, not everything needs to be automated, and not everything is economically better automated. However, this is again, evaluate what can be done. Think strategically, think innovative. think from a level of how is this company evolving, how is this business evolving, and what sort of technologies could be interesting, and what can artificial intelligence do in that area. This obviously brings us to innovation, which is also something that is talked about a lot in relation to quality. What is the role of quality people in innovation? And innovation being the topic for the future. But before we talk about that, I'll talk about quality culture and teamwork. This is not the technical part of the additional knowledge, you know, in that circle I had. On the one hand, the big data, and on the other hand, the artificial intelligence. But then to the left, we had things like culture and teamwork and psychology and so on. And there I think that this is where we go from the hard to the much harder soft. You all know we talk about hard quality and soft quality, and all of you know that the soft quality is much harder. And coming back to the slide I showed from Hans-Jürgen August, with all these competencies that are needed for all these competencies that are needed for the future for a quality manager, a lot of them were in this area. And actually, Hans-Jürgen was right. Yes, we need that large variety of knowledge to grasp all the opportunities that we want to grasp to become a better organization for the future and equipped for the future. However, and that's where I differ from opinion with Hans-Jürgen, we need that knowledge within the overall organization. A quality manager will not be a $6 million man. But a quality manager can look at, are we as an organization equipped with the necessary skills within the organization to do all that? And actually, I urge you also to think about that within your own quality organization. We tend to have quality departments that are very unidirectional. If you look at the competencies that are present, the backgrounds of people, many of them will have a technical background, many of them will have an engineering background. We don't have many psychologists working within our organization. We don't have many anthropologists working within our organization. And anthropology is the study of culture. If we really think culture is very important, we might need that knowledge. I may even add, we don't have many people within our organization, within our quality organization, from a data background, from a software background. That might also be interesting. If you need to fill a position within your quality department, think about that kind of skills. Maybe it's worthwhile to hire somebody from a different area for a change, adding that variation to the knowledge within the organization and within your own organization to start with. Okay, let's accept our limitations. You know, let's accept that we do not have the in-depth professional knowledge on anthropology or on psychology. And maybe let's see what we can do already to add that knowledge. And I wanted to bring this first before I talked about innovation, because in fact this mix of ideas, this mix of views is in my view the most important element to create an innovative organization. And yes, there are all sorts of innovative techniques, and I'm a big fan of TRIS, you know, the theory of inventive problem solving, developed by Altshuler in Russia. I really think everybody in quality should read at least one book on this to get acquainted with the ideas. But what I think is extremely important is to embrace diversity. Embrace different ideas from different angles, because it are the different views that bring the new ideas, dare to go beyond what you normally do, dare to introduce new people, new ideas from totally different areas. In fact, one interesting thing to look at is to invite what we could consider masters of innovation. These are artists. There are a couple of organizations in Belgium that regularly have seminars where they invite artists, modern artists, to talk about their ideas and about how they come to innovative ideas. It's very fascinating. I want to give you one example of a book that I really like, which is called Just Kids by Patti Smith. And I hope some of you read it. If not, I can advise you to read it. Now, it's written by Patti Smith, very well known, of course, as a rock singer, but it's about her teenage years in New York, together with Robert Mapplethorpe, the later very famous photographer, who was not in photography at that point in time. Now, they were staying in New York and they were having a really, really bad time. They were very poor, they had to struggle. However, Mapplethorpe at no point in time doubted that they would be successful. And he expressed it in one sentence. Nobody sees as we do, Pat. Not nobody looks, but nobody sees as we do. And I think that is what we need in organizations to be truly innovative. People that see differently. Now, the next part, and also going to go over this rather quickly, is the holistic quality part. This is, of course, very much towards sustainability, and already gave a sustainability speech that is available, I think, on the YouTube channel of the Blue Reach section. But just to quickly go over it, this is where we go from us to them, where we expand our scope of impact, and actually where we see sustainability as a key business success factor, which it undoubtedly will be. Now, sustainability basically consists of three elements: financial, and this is something where we're already very, very good at. It's our major contribution to the sustainability of the organization. Help an organization to be financially sustainable. The next step is environmental, where we're also doing things. And I think in many organizations, quality is driving sustainability efforts in the environmental area in an organization, so that is good. I think in the longer term, sustainability will be leading quality. And the ultimate goal, of course, is linking these two and adding social sustainability to it, which basically means all of us have a duty to try and improve society. All of us individually, all of us as an organization. And of course, improvement is the final goal of all quality efforts. So this is what we are supposed to do by definition, I think. Now, looking at past, present, and future, I think we had total quality control at some point in time as a very important issue, especially the total quality that became important. We replaced it later on by total quality management because we wanted to take away the emphasis from the control translated as inspection, making clear it's the management of the entire company that must be focused on total quality. And I think in the future, we will see the TQC coming back, but not with the C of control, but with the C of care, going into the direction of total quality care. And I think in the future, we will have this caring aspect. You could call it sustainability, but I think it's even wider than that, as a guideline for quality. We need to care about our customers. We need to care about our environment and about the planet. We need to care about the people, both as an organization, as individuals, and as professionals. We need to care. about the people that depend on us and about the customers that depend on us, the environment that depends on us, and the people in our organization. And I think if you look at all these competencies that were on that slide from Hans-Jürgen August, I think there were two that were even still missing, and that will be vital to do our job properly and to be an example within the organization. The first one is to be totally honest. We need to show the situation the way it is, whether it is good or bad. We tend to bring the news, we have to bring the news the way it is. The bad news when it's not good, but also the good news when it is good, and that is something that we need to work on. And we need to bring this news being infinitely kind, because there is not one company that cannot benefit from more honesty and more kindness. And with this, I want to thank you very much for your kind attention. You can find all my contact details here, and I'm obviously open for questions. I think that Norwal will now take it over. I can also share my webcam now so that you can see me for the question time. Thank you very much again. Hi, Norwal.
Hi, Willy. Thanks very much. I hear an echo.
Oh, still hear an echo?
I don't think so. Yeah,
No.
I do hear it.
And I'll see if I can do something about that. Is this better, Norwal?
I don't know. Let's see. Yeah, I don't hear an echo now. Good.
Okay.
All right, Willy. Thanks very much. Folks, if we have any questions for Willy, if you would please send them to the chat box. A couple comments that were asked in here while we're waiting for questions was about when does registration open for November webinars. I answered that question a little bit ago just to the individual, but we do have the registration set up through Eventbrite for the first 3 of the 4 webinars during World Quality Week. The Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday registrations are set up. There is some logistics that have to be considered as far as the closing one on Thursday, but I think I have a pretty good idea what we can do about that. So we'll try to get that taken care of. Willy, are you able to see the questions?
Yes, I see. I see somebody about book recommendations. There are plenty of books I can recommend. Of course, I'm a big fan of Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance by Pirsig, which is to me still the best book ever written on quality. But I also encourage people. I learned a lot from Anna Karenina on quality, for instance. You know, the book by Tolstoy. I made a presentation once on quality and art, and that contained a lot of these references. But yeah, there are plenty of books out there. Again, Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance is to me still one of the most important ones. I hope that answered that question. And then somebody asked a question about seeing design being automated. Yeah, let me give you, I'll give you an example for that. And this is about artificial intelligence, actually. The situation was the following. There was a piece needed for a machine as an interface between 2 other pieces of the machine. And this had been designed by manually. This had been designed by a designer, and he came up with a rather classical design. Now, what they then did was put the requirements for the design into an artificial intelligence system and had that run a couple of runs. Now, the system came up with a part design that looked at first being totally crazy, but actually this part performed the same function, but for half the price and 1/3 of the weight. So I really think, I'm not saying this is, like available to everybody at any point in time, but what you see is that the critical element seems to become to translate the customer requirements into design requirements as good as possible. And then the detailed design could be taken over by artificial intelligence systems. Okay, I don't know if that's an answer to the question. Recommended books for culture, not immediately. Hold on, I'll take one out. Is it possible to access the presentation of quality and art? If you send me an email, I can send you the presentation. I still have it somewhere. It should be a problem. But there's a specific question to the presentation. Can you explain more about the customer experiences analog? Well, I gave the example of the pizza app, but if you look at the best known apps, things like Uber, Airbnb, Booking.com, these are all actually interfaces. They link a customer, somebody needing something, with somebody offering something. Okay, and they make it very easy to get service. Like Uber, you take your app and you order a taxi. It's very simple. However, you do need a real person in a real car to come and pick you up. So your experience will be the analog experience. It doesn't matter how brilliant the Uber app is. If the taxi driver is rude, if the car breaks down on your travel, you will not be satisfied. You will not be happy. And I think in many cases, the digital part makes the interface so much easier, so much better. That's part of the experience. But the real experience in the end is the analog experience that you get. The Airbnb, was it nice, was it clean, etc. So I really think we should not forget that, which means a lot of our basic quality issues are still there. I'll scroll down a little bit. The recommended book was Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance by Robert M. Piersick. This one, can you please share some important points of TQM based on your experience? It's a very general question. I could add this comment only: honesty, kindness, humility should be considered with dealing with people. That's very true, and thank you for that. Well, if you talk about these important points of TQM, I'll only give you one actually, which I think is very important. I said we need to be very honest, bringing bad news when it's bad news, but also bringing good news, which is something we forget very often. It's a bit related to culture. It's not my invention. It's something that I saw at the customer that I think as an idea is pretty brilliant and that everybody should think about. If you have ISO 9001, you will undoubtedly have a procedure on complaints, or complaint handling. This customer mine has a procedure, and it's called handling of complaints and compliments. And that means that if a customer says to a salesperson, for instance, hey, you guys really helped me out last time with that late delivery or whatever, they have a form where that is noted on. This form will go to the CEO. It will be checked what people were involved in doing this extra service, and the CEO will personally thank them. And if you think of total quality, I think that is a good example. Total quality as a good management is good manners, and it is nice to thank people for something extraordinary they did. We don't do that enough. Also, quality people don't do that enough. We are so much focused on reducing errors, correcting things, that we seem to forget this, and we shouldn't. So it's I think it's very important. Thanks for the comments of the musician in the audience. Yeah, nice.
Okay.
Scroll down.
Looks like we'll have a few more minutes for questions. If anybody has questions for Willy. Not seeing any other ones here, Willy.
Well, some of them are, like the one on TQM, I could talk a lot more, and that is not that easy to just give a few points. But I think the idea of we should give the good example on things, and thanking people and respecting people is very important, I think. Also in creating a quality culture.
Absolutely. Let's see. Doesn't look like we're getting any other questions. No? Did you have any closing comments, Willy?
Closing comments. Well, I think I said most of it. I think, first of all, don't be afraid. Fear is always a bad advisor. Think about the opportunities, because we don't do that enough. And also think very much about the what instead of how. As quality professionals, we love solving problems, but as quality managers, we should make sure that the rest of the organization become great problem solvers. And we need to think about the future and the preventive part. One of the reasons why we don't get the time to do it is that we take too many problems on us and solve them instead of letting the other people solve them. We should be creators of problem solvers, I think.
Okay.
That's about it.
All right. Well, I think that's probably going to be about it for questions. Don't see any others coming through the chat box. I'd like to thank Willy for presenting for us today. Thank you, Willy.
No problem, Norval. You're welcome.
And also like to thank everyone also for joining us today. The next webinar opportunity will be in 2 weeks, starting on Monday, November the 5th, as we embark on World Quality Week with the first of 4 webinars that week. And we hope to see many of you there for those. Registration for the first 3, like I said earlier, is now open. So hopefully we'll see you online then. Until then, I'd like to wish everybody a great rest of the day, and we'll hopefully see you soon. Thanks. Bye now.
Well, thank you.